Here's my take on reestablishing diplomatic relations with Cuba. Just because Obama wants it doesn't mean you should oppose it. We got to think about these things. There could be some downside to it. Some are complaining not enough concessions were demanded from the Cuban regime. And I guess that's probably true. But let me say a couple of things. The Castro brothers are ancient. They're going to be dead soon. There's no charismatic replacement for them. The communist movement is an obvious failure. All the people of Cuba have to do is look around Cuba, and they can see it. As far as I'm concerned, they can't do away with Guantanamo, which they want to do. We have bases all over the world. We're going to keep that base. That would be a deal breaker, I think. The embargo can only be voted out by Congress. I don't know that they'll do it. A lot of votes in Congress against that. But as I say, the Republicans are kind of split on this. My take on it is this. There's a lot of business to be done, a lot of money to be made, and also spread American enterprise, prosperity, and freedom across that island. I think you could well see the communist regime vaporize almost overnight the way we saw the old Soviet Union and Eastern European bloc nations go down in the late 80s and early 90s. And if it doesn't work out that way, we can crush them like a grape, for crying out loud. They no longer have the relationship that they had with the old Soviet Union with Russia. They're definitely cozy, but it's not the same thing. They're not putting missiles in Cuba 90 miles from our shore, and if they are, we can take care of that as well. I think you got to give this a shot. I think there's a lot of business, and I think there's a lot of profit to be made right here in the state of Florida. Let's open it up, for crying out loud. We do business, enormous business, with communist China. We don't get on our high horse and say, we don't do business with communist regimes. I mean, give me a break. Yaffee?
Well, I was just going to say, you mentioned that we do business with communist China. A lot of people would say that's been a terrible disaster in terms of, you talk about infusing American freedom and prosperity. China is still very communist, still oppresses their people, still persecutes Christians.
I get all of that, but there'd be nothing to buy on the shelves in America without China, and you know it. They provide. No, come on, give me a break. Everything we got is made in China, and it's cheap. And I hate the idea. You know, Trump is saying, they're taking our jobs, yada yada yada. That's all true, but we are interwoven with China, and just because they're a communist regime, there is no way we're suddenly going to say no more dealing with China.
I agree with that.
It is not going to happen.
I agree with that.
Then why don't we open up and deal with Cuba and let the chips fall where they may, and if it gets out of control, shut them down?
Well, for one, I wouldn't want to make the same mistake twice. We can't just deny relations with China because we're already interwoven. So we're going to interweave with Cuba. We're going to work with a dictatorship. I just hate that we constantly prop up these dictators with our money.
But I don't think we are. I think we'll cause the whole thing to fall like a house of cards when the Cuban people over there realize how much better it got, with American money on the island, for crying out loud. Might even have a few new cars to buy instead of 56 Chevys they keep on trying to find a way to get on the road.
Yeah, that's assuming if the people see the money and not just the dictatorship swallows it all up.
Who's going to follow the Castro brothers? Is anybody in waiting that you're worried about right now? Is there some charismatic leader in the hills who's going to swoop on down like Castro did in 1959?
Well, you're right. There might not be anyone who follows the Castro brothers. So let's wait till the Castro brothers are dead, and then we deal with the leadership after, who might be more willing to make concessions and might be more willing to go towards more democracy. But right now, we're just propping up a dictatorship that does a lot and persecutes Christians, by the way.
Who's got it right on opening up Cuba, the Bud man or Yaffee?